Metrics, or the measurement of things, is important to all aspects of life. It's important in medicine, it's important in economics, it's important in government, it's important in business, of course, all throughout business, and especially within HR. Now, if you think about it, every course you've taken has introduced you to their specific metrics, everything from health and safety to training to compensation to HR planning. Now, specifically in this tutorial, we're going to look at some leading metrics, important metrics for the recruitment and selection side of human resources or talent management. Now, by keeping metrics, of course, you're able to see where you're at, assess and evaluate your position at any moment, and then compare that against some sort of established benchmark. Whether you make your own benchmark, that's that area that you believe is acceptable. You can inherit them from a government agency or an industry group. It gives you a perspective of where you are, where you should be, and allows you to set good objective goals. And when you have that, you're able to now look at ways to possibly optimize your activities and allocation of resources. Now, if you do have metrics, which means you have numbers, and numbers means that you are providing concrete or quantified evidence. It's very objective versus subjective or qualitative, which also has room when people provide their opinions or things that cannot be readily proved, their ideas, their visions. That's okay too. But when you have numbers, actual objective numbers on your side, you now have evidence so that nobody can argue your position, or it will be very hard to do. So we're going to take a look at a data set for a hospital network. And we're going to run through some very popular and common and important metrics for recruitment and selection. So there's a document posted in the course documents area of MySeneca that gives you an idea of what all the metrics are for HR. Specifically, you can look at the ones for recruitment and selection. What I've done is I've chosen the leading ones. You can see what they are. There's total vacancies, time to fill, candidates per hire, etc., etc. Now, some of this you've discovered through the first part of the course, but we're going to go through each one using actual data. Now, some of these are simpler than you think. Others involve a little bit more calculating. For example, total vacancies at any given moment is simply a number of all the vacant positions that are open. You are still trying to fill them. Maybe it's a tough market. You're finding it hard to recruit people. Time to fill is the amount of time that has gone or passed since the requisition was approved to the actual hire. Okay, the longer that time, the worse off you are. I suppose you can look at it that way. And keep in mind, some things might be easier to fill, like a machine operator in a factory might take a few days, whereas a chief of cardiology might take, half a year to find a good candidate, or the president of a company. Candidates per hire would be, for every person you hired, how many applicants or candidates did you actually have? And you can combine that with yield ratios and look at that number at each stage. So how many people came in? How many resumes? How many made it through the next step, the initial screening? What's that percentage? That's called a selection ratio or a yield ratio. And the higher the percentage, it means that you're just attracting really good quality applicants to choose from. Okay, cost per hire, out of all the costs, how much did it cost for one hire? Acquisition cost per applicant, that's important. How much does it cost you to get resumes? I mean, are you paying agencies? Are you paying for a lot of advertising? Or are you organically attracting people to apply for free? So your acquisition cost might be quite low per resume or per applicant. We'll also have a look at turnover rate, which means in any given period, for example, 1 year, how many of your active staff actually left the company, were terminated, or they retired, or they quit, or you fired them. And then we'll also have a look at some elements of effectiveness of hire. So after you hire people from different places, different sources, how good were they? Did you have false positives or false negatives on your testing or your interview process, your selection process? We'll have a look at all of this, and we'll use a tool called Pivots, of course. It's probably the best tool you can use to get there. And just remember, any data that you get, you can always break it down or group it by the entire organization, by the job that you're looking at, by location, by department, who they report to, etc. So now let's have a look at the actual data. There's a file called RNS Metrics Data that is available for download under Course Documents. If you look at it, there's 4 tabs at the bottom. And the first tab, the master tab, is some information for every employee at the hospital network ever since it started. So this includes all employees that work for us currently, but also ones that have been terminated. So most of it's quite simple. There's a name of the person, there's a location, and if you want to just look up here, just move your mouse on the heading. It tells you the name of the location, what the job title is, full-time, part-time, who they report to. That'll become important. Also the date we hired them and whether they've been terminated or not. And the vacant means that, yes, it is vacant. We are currently looking. N means we're not going to replace them. The person has left. And R means that we've already replaced that person earlier. So take a look. This person here, Darlene Mangione, we hired her on April 26th, 2005. She left the company on May 4th, 2020. And the reason for leaving was P. Now let's take a look at reasons. P would be left due to pay dissatisfaction, right? So we've got left, were let go by the company. We let them go. They left because of job dissatisfaction, manager conflict, colleague conflict. There could be a number of reasons why people leave. And then we've got some supporting information that you might or might not use for recruitment, which is the pay, the number of absent days, the sick days. This one is important, the current performance rating. This is the rating that for the current year, and we're going to use 2020 as the year on a scale of 1 to 5. We won't really worry too much about the previous rating from the past year, but here's some performance measures. MPI is a malpractice incidence, and that would, of course, be for medical professionals, and also the patient complaint rating. So on a scale of 0 to 3, 3 would be a high number of patient complaints. So if you think about it, we can match up these performance measures against the people that we've hired to see how effective they were. So pretty simple data. There's another tab down here called vacancies. So these are all the vacant positions in the company right now, and you can count them just by highlighting them. And if you notice over here, we've already filled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them, okay? Then we've got a tab here called RNS. So what I've done is, rather than looking at all the vacancies, we're going to look at 2. Security guard for Central Site and general physician for the King Site. So we're looking for 4 security people and 3 physicians. They report to these people, chief of surgery and general manager. The requisition for security was put in. Now remember, the requisition is a signed document by the manager that says, yes, I authorize the budget to hire 4 people. For this job was signed on November 1st, 2020. The posting went out on December 4th, 2020. And the first person was hired on April 16th, 21. Now if you look at it, there was a huge lag time, over a month from requisition to posting. And that leads you to kind of investigate and see, why was there a month period for us to get the posting out? Was it a bureaucratic bottleneck? Was it something on our end that held things up? What was it? We can investigate. Now, if you do that analysis for a number of jobs, and you say on average all the jobs were posted 3 weeks after requisition, there's a chance to optimize that and fix it. So we're actually getting evidence for the first time to see our activities are delayed or if they're optimized or appropriate or not. And then if you look how long it took to hire from the date of requisition to the actual hire, we'll calculate that in a minute. It's a long time. Why would it take so long to hire a security guard? And we'll talk about that later. So take a look. These are all the applications that came in, okay? So the blue ones are just for security, and the rest are all for general physician. These are all the applicants, and the ones in green are the ones we actually hired. So we'll come back to this tab later on. And the last tab is a supporting tab that gives you some costs. So if you look, if we internally get people, either from our own company, like people already work for us, or we get them through our own website, supposedly it doesn't cost anything. It's free, right? It's not. Internal, we charge a cost of $75, and that would be sort of the time spent by an HR person maintaining the website, posting up, that sort of thing, right? But if we go to agencies, not just to send us an employee, but to send us resumes, these are the different costs for different agencies. Okay, we'll use that later on. And then from the selection point of view, We have activities that cost money and resources, things like initial screening, employment tests, interviews, background checks. Even the offer takes money and time. So for security, these are the various costs per person that we processed. Okay. Again, we're going to get back to that later on.